Okay, I have a special treat for you guys. I have a great friend, coffee enthusiast, Rinat Berishev with me, and he's going to introduce us to everything coffee. So please, tell me all about what you know about coffee. First, how did you get to be so excited about coffee?
That is a great question. I'm gonna blame a friend of mine for that. I have a friend of mine named John who got me into the coffee industry in about 2010. He opened up a coffee shop. I didn't know much about it. I've had coffee and I've learned a little bit about it, and I used to go to Zojo Coffee when they first opened. So Dan and Cindy kind of got me interested in coffee, understanding specialty coffee, because I always knew as just flavored lattes, and that's what I liked. And then they broke it down to, this is what coffee is, and so these are what beans are. And so got me just a little bit interested in it, and I'm a person who gets temporarily obsessed with something or with anything, and I just deep dive. And
That's what I love about you, by the way, because you're
you.
obsessed. And
yes,
I'm obsessed.
It's a good and bad thing. It's a good and bad thing.
That's literally why you're here today, because we're both obsessed with something and we just need to share it with the world. So
I agree, and I'm glad. Thanks for having me do this. I'm stoked. So I have a friend of mine who got me into it, and then we started our own little coffee shop.
Okay.
For his church is how we
I didn't know
got
that.
into it. Yeah.
Okay.
And so and then I just lived and breathed coffee. The most, around, we did it every day, and I wanted to learn more about it, and then it just became a problem because we were just obsessed and nothing was good enough, and we just kept going. And then I ended up here, and there's a lot of gaps and things to it, but yeah, I just got really into it because I have a friend of mine who we both like technology, and I met him through technology, which got me into coffee, and then I've kind of paired my life with technology and coffee. I work in coffee, and then I get pulled into technology, and then I get pulled back into coffee. So
I love it. That's an interesting pairing because it's not something that you would correlate. They would go together.
Absolutely.
But I think you're doing it in a way where it's unique, and I feel like we can educate a lot of people about it. I just think there's a lot to learn about coffee.
Yes.
Okay, first question. When did you have your first cup of coffee? And tell me the experience. Did you love it? What was it?
Oh man, that's a great question. My first time, I think this was my first time. The first memory I have, I was at my grandma and grandpa's house, and we always have tea in my culture. I'm culturally Russian, and so I grew up with tea, and we always had tea. And so the kids were allowed to have tea from the moment we could drink liquid, I think. And so my grandpa always had coffee, and he would have this plastic, I don't know what brand it was, he had this little plastic jar of coffee. He would take 2 scoops of it, add it to hot water, and just stir it. And that was his coffee, and he had to have at least 1 or 2 cups a day. And so I was staying the night at their house, and I remember my grandma made me a cup of coffee, and I was stirring it, and I was drinking it, and I wanted to feel tough and adult. I wanted to be a grown-up. And I'm drinking it, and it's just
gross.
Just because I'm picking up parts of ground coffee beans or just
chew?
unrefined coffee. I don't know what it was. And so I was drinking it, and I was like, yeah, this is good. And then I was just energized for the day, and it was not a pleasant taste, but I just wanted to be an adult. And I was like, this is, I know I've had coffee, and I bragged to everyone that I had coffee.
Why is that? Why did we correlate coffee with being an adult? Because I did the same thing.
I think it's because you just as a kid weren't allowed. I think every generation for a while, people have known that kids probably shouldn't have caffeine. I think most parents, you have enough energy.
Yeah.
I had enough energy. Let's not give him more fuel.
We need to sleep at night.
And so it was that's the thing you couldn't have. And in my culture, I didn't grow up drinking, no one in my life at the time drank alcohol. So the big forbidden thing was coffee. You can't have coffee, and when you can, you're an adult. And that was the passage of times when you have coffee, you're a grown up.
Okay.
So
you're a grown up, and wouldn't you say coffee has evolved? So from that instant cup of chunky water to today, it's made this huge shift. I mean, it's culturally a shift. It's flavorful. I mean, it's just a different cup of coffee.
Yeah, I mean, I've made a career out of it in a way. I work within coffee now because of it, and so I think that is a wonderful thing, but I also feel like it's a scary thing for a lot of people because you have the people who are used to just stirring up some grounds or some powder, and then that was coffee for them, and to now it's names they can't even pronounce, to macchiatos, to frappes, and they're like, I just want a cup of coffee.
Awesome.
And so I think I've at least made it important. I've made it part of my life to try to bridge that gap for people. I don't want to disrespect someone's process because what works for them. But also if someone's open to trying something new, I want to find something that works for them in into where I've experienced and what I consume now. And so trying to find that gap is kind of where I've been.
Awesome, which leads us here. That's literally why we're here, and I'm so excited. You're gonna teach us 3 different methods.
Yes.
Can you explain the 3 methods really quickly, and then we'll start with one, because I haven't had a cup of coffee today, and I need one.
I feel like, yes, I think we should have coffee. So one of the methods is the pour over, and I think that's kind of very common lately for people. It's a good little house setup. And a pour over, I feel like, is no different than and this might be dangerous to say, but I at least see it as just like brewed coffee at home. You have a coffee brewer, and it's kind of the same concept. It's boiling hot water over ground up coffee, and instead of the machine just dropping it for you, you are the machine that does it, and this gives you more of a control. Okay. And so this is the pour over.
Okay, so a couple questions that already come to mind, and I asked way too many questions.
I like questions.
First of all, why would somebody use a pour over versus their coffee pot that they can push a button and just be like, it's done for me and I don't have to do anything?
Could be 2 reasons. Could be space. Could be if you just don't have the space for a coffee pot.
Yeah.
And you want to do this, the cleanup is very easy, and it's kind of an all-in-one. You consume it out of that. Or if you want more control, if you're trying to get a little bit more into coffee and you feel like, okay, the coffee pot's not doing it for me, and you're trying to you're putting your foot into your toe in the water a little bit to try to test it out. And this is a good way to go, because you get into control kind of how the process happens, from learning more about the beans to the water temperature to the volume to the amount, versus a lot of those machines you just set it and forget it.
Yeah.
And for some people that works, and for some people it doesn't.
And so when you say control, I'm able to control the saturation to which the coffee and the water,
yes.
So how strong or how weak it is.
Yes.
Also, you're controlling the grind.
Yes. And the
what
temperature
else?
of the water as well.
And the temperature.
Yeah. So the temperature of the water and the amount of water as well. And that's with the saturation, I feel like. So that's one way to do the pour over. I feel like, that's a good one. And then also, this is the AeroPress.
I'm excited about this one. This one I had no idea what it was when you told me about it.
I learned about it recently as well. I didn't realize it was just so accessible. I thought it was, I don't know. I live in the world of technology, and I never thought to Google the price of these things and how easy it is to get them. I thought it was some unique thing. But this is similar to, for if anyone knows what a French press is. And I feel like this is something very similar to it. You grind up your coffee, you weigh it out, or you can scoop it. So that's so to round it out, if you can go as deep as you want into coffee, from whether you want to measure every little detail, or you're like, oh, you eyeball it. I feel like it's kind of with baking. Like, I asked my mom for a recipe, she's like, oh, just a sprinkle of salt. I'm like, what is a sprinkle?
Yeah.
But you just know. So it's like, and so it's more for the more you do it, the more you figure out kind of what you want. And so this is the AeroPress, and it's kind of put your grounds in there, kind of similar with the pour over. You pour some hot water and you let it sit. You let the coffee bloom, and you add a little bit more to it. Close it up. Let it sit for a bit, and then you slowly press it out. And it's kind of a combination of, I feel like, at least how I have seen it, would be similar to like a French press to almost espresso, where you're kind of adjusting it, and it's less messy than a French press, but I feel like it gives you similar extractions, and the coffee is maybe a little more bold, or you can get kind of the boldness out of it, depending on the coffee you want. But that's
and it's very portable. Like, you can take this anywhere. You can put it in your backpack.
That's exactly it. I think that's the best part about it, is if you can bring a little pitcher of hot water with you, or something with hot water, you can make this. And I think the person who invented this and made this, he explained that you can make a lot of cups of coffee, and how long it sits, you can brew more out of it. And so I just enjoyed it because it's just quick and easy. And for me, it's just boom, done, simple.
Okay, so we have the pour over, we have the AeroPress, and then there's a beautiful machine that's calling my name over here.
So there is a espresso machine. I don't know if you can see it on camera or not, but we have a espresso machine. This is kind of like, depending on how far invested you want to go into coffee, and there's a scale of like entry-level espresso machines to the level you're spending thousands and thousands of, tens of thousands of dollars, depending on how far you want to get into it. This is a Breville, the Barista Touch, or the Breville, and this is about anywhere from $800 to $1,300 range, depending on when you get it. And so this is for those people who want to become, who love going to get a cup of coffee, they love having the barista experience, but also want to try it out themselves and want to make it at home. And so kind of bring it all in and probably try to save some money over the long run. And so this is the espresso machine. This more gives you a more extracted cup of coffee, gives you 2 ounces, and then you could turn it into, then, you know, it's endless opportunities from Americanos to lattes to just espresso if you want, just some espresso shots, and then the opportunities are endless.
Yeah, this is awesome. I need one of these in my life. So we can't really talk coffee without talking beans.
Yes.
And I know when I was talking to you about having this conversation, you were really specific about we want to get whole beans. And I did go to Keebler in town. And so they helped me pick out 3 different, which you recommended me down this road as well. So let's talk about the beans. Why do we get whole beans versus grounds? And what's the thought process behind it for each of the brewing methods as well?
I like, and a lot of these opinions are just more of kind of my own, and some of them are standardized throughout the industry, but the industry keeps evolving, and we keep learning, and some methods that used to work may not work, or somebody has a new preference. I like whole bean. Part of it is because I know who roasts my coffee, so I like to go, I love to support local, I love to chat with my friend about it, and I love that oftentimes when you get whole bean, you get fresh coffee, and freshness. There, you can have coffee that's too fresh as well. So if it's just freshly roasted, it probably doesn't do well as espresso. Different flavors extract from it. So that's kind of the thing with the different methods, is you can pull out different flavors out of the coffee beans.
Go back to what you were saying about it not being freshly roasted and not being so good.
And so, yeah, if something's too fresh, it's still off-gassing. So a lot of these coffee bags have a little hole in there.
Oh, I didn't even know.
And so,
okay.
And that's kind of like a nice little trick, is you grab the coffee, you squeeze on it, and you can smell the coffee without having to open it. And so
I didn't even notice.
And so they have different, they have different smells to them.
And so this is for the off-gassing process from when after they were roasted.
After the beans have been roasted, they have a certain period that they off-gas, and some roasters will actually tell you how long they'd recommend before you make espresso or have your coffee. I also like to grind my own coffee because it gives me the ability to do different methods. The AeroPress is a lot more coarse coffee than, the AeroPress can be a lot more fine coffee than the pour over, and then the espresso is a lot more fine. So I think of coffee from sand to gravel. So the finer it is, the longer it takes to extract, the more flavors it pulls. The coarse it is, the quicker the water goes through it, the less flavor it takes. But they all have their place in your
Could
kitchen.
you do a finer grind on something like this? Would you normally do a coarser grind?
You could, and it might pull something else out for you. It might have different flavors. I've noticed that as my coffee has aged, like the longer I've had my beans, that I would go finer, and that pulls out a different flavor. It gives me a longer shelf life with that coffee. Because there are oftentimes when people don't have grinders, you can get. There's nothing wrong with getting pre-ground coffee. It's just checking kind of the date on it. If it's been there for a month, it might not be great, or it might not have certain flavors.
Great
and
tip.
So it's kind of like, it's almost like stale bread is what I think of it.
Yeah.
Like, and stale bread has this place, right? You can turn it into croutons or something. Like you can have, it's doable, but the fresher, there's kind of I feel like, at least for me, there's kind of a sweet spot with coffee.
So I think there's a great tip for everyone to remember to check your dates on your coffee when you're buying, especially grounds, to make sure you check the date to see what within a month window. Yeah,
within a month. And some people will tell you, like sometimes, like my friend Matt who owns Keebler, he will sometimes tell me hey, like this, I've noticed this coffee actually opens up more at the 2-week mark or something, and so depending on the method you use, that would play a role in it for sure. But definitely check your dates, and sometimes the oilier the coffee beans are when you see them at the store, the more they've already lost, and so they might be actually older. And then some coffees roast and they are oily, and so it's like the more you dig into it, the more you start seeing. It's kind of hard to say all oily coffee is old, or all oily coffee is over roasted or dark roast. And so it's kind of like trusting the roaster, seeing where it comes from, knowing kind of a little bit about it, and then also just at the end of the day, it's just seeing what you like. So it's like, that's why I had you grab 3 different ones to kind of play around with the types of coffee or the region it comes from, and then the flavors you like.
Okay, well let's get into the flavors, because I'm ready. Did you want to start with the
We'll start with the pour over. Okay, so we have 3 options here. We have the Ethiopia, the Bombay Concwana.
That looks good to me.
And then we have the Papua New Guinea, and we have the Guatemala. I feel like, just having played around with this espresso machine, at least for espresso, bolder coffee, depending on what you want. I should say. There's so many like rabbit holes we can go down with coffee. When you make a latte, the moment you add something to your coffee, it could water down the flavors a little bit. So if you go from espresso and you add some water to it, you make the Americanos, and that changes the flavor. The moment you add milk to it, it also changes the flavor. And some coffee doesn't taste good with milk.
Oh, interesting.
Because of the acidity of it. So if you have a lot of like citrus flavors, a lot of lighter flavors in it, they might not taste as good as a latte. Like if you're going to add chocolate to it, or like if you're going to make a mocha or caramel. And so I go with bolder flavors because you can actually pick them up through. Because some people love a flavored latte. Nothing wrong with having some sweetness in your coffee. And so the coffee that you'd select for, you'd want to still be able to, you'd want to pair it well, and you don't want the flavors that you've added to the latte to mask the flavor of the coffee, or vice versa.
It's kind of bringing me down the rabbit hole of wine, in the sense of like how we taste wine and we pair it with food, and
Absolutely.
we don't want to pair certain things together, or it's just something where you want to be mindful of what you're pairing together based on the flavor profiles. And so what I hear you say, this one here, this Guatemala coffee, it says tasty notes of milk chocolate, hazelnut, apricot, and grape. So this is lower in the acidic profile.
Probably.
And so this would be good to add with milk.
I think so, yes.
Okay, that makes sense. I had no idea.
And so I would use that for, and some people like certain flavors. I always try to find the middle ground for people. So if someone's trying to learn about coffee, and I always ask them, like, where are you at with coffee? What kind of coffee do you like? And then that's the next approach, is how I would then make a coffee for someone. If somebody loves just a brewed cup of coffee, I would just do a pour over or an AeroPress. And if someone wants flavor and milk, then I would probably aim for the espresso, and then we can create a latte out of that. And you could add cream to any of these.
Right.
But I always just kind of ask people where they are at in their coffee journey.
Okay.
And kind of see where
So
we're
which
at.
one do you think we should use for the pour over?
The pour over, I would probably try the Papua New Guinea.
Okay.
So that'd be interesting to try. I haven't tried this Papua New Guinea yet, so it'll be nice to see. And part of this as well is when you're reading this, you've got like different processes, and then that's how the coffee's like prepped. And so there's like washed, and then there's natural. And so coffee is a cherry, and the bean is the pit in it. And so when they pick it, they dry it, and sometimes they wash it to separate the cherry from the pit, from the bean itself. And sometimes they let it sit there longer, so then the coffee bean actually absorbs the flavor from the cherry. And so there's different flavors in that, and different preferences of what people like in their coffees.
And so this one is with the cherry.
I believe so. I believe when the
it's not
natural,
washed.
well, yeah. So that's how they do, and then they use different tools to separate it, and then So then this should be a lot more flavorful. So it'd be interesting to try it in a pour over.
All right, let's do it.
And so how I do it, and I do like a 15-to-1 ratio.
Okay.
So that's 15 grams of water for 1 gram of coffee. And so I will usually, and then there's also temperature. So I've noticed with the medium, and I feel like these are probably like medium roast coffees, based off of just kind of what Matt picks at the shop, and that's something you can always ask people about. Like, is this a dark roast? Is this medium roast? Is this a light roast coffee? And then that will help you define kind of the temperature. I've noticed that the darker the coffee, the lower the temperature I would use. The lighter the coffee, the higher the temperature. I usually keep mine around 205 degrees is what I go for my cups of coffee. So we are preheating some water here.
Yeah, we're right about 200, so we're close.
Perfect, right on the dot.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So then I have this fancy little grinder I use.
Yeah, this is fun. These gadgets that you have.
Yeah, so this is
could get me in trouble.
So this is a burr grinder, or conical burr grinder. And so, actually this is a burr grinder. So it uses burrs to grind the coffee, versus some coffees use blades. And then there's conical burrs. So there's different types of grinding you can use. I feel like for what I make at home, this seems to be the most, this kind of hits the spot for me of how I like my coffee ground. And this specific one gives you the actual kind of little cheat sheet of what they recommend. And I feel like
you can control it, right?
Yes, and that's the nice part about it.
That's the difference, because the one I have is literally like just a little.
Yep. You press, and then so you kind of either go audibly or visually,
and
then you see it, and then sometimes it doesn't evenly do it. And that's, with some coffees, it's a little tougher to see if you're trying to be, if you want to try to have across the board, just an equal amount of grounds. And so this one I like, because when you're making coffee, there's a lot of waste when you make coffee at home. And there's lots where a lot of expenses come in. So this is kind of nice to have a little cheat sheet of what they recommend for what you're doing. So you're not going to waste as much beans trying to get the grounds right.
That's awesome.
So
Okay.
if we're going to go to the pour over, I'm going to the presets as well from fine to coarse. I'm going to have it at a 4. I think a little lighter than 4, like 3 3/4. And that's what's worked for me recently because I've made coffee at home yesterday.
We're going to do this guy here.
And I think it's important. I think it's important. I don't know. I like to measure my coffee out. So then part of it's just because I'm always like, I don't want to, especially with good quality, I don't want to waste the coffee. And so I want to measure, and I also just want to kind of see if what the flavor change is like. And some coffees you can add more water to and adjust your ratio. And so for this, I'm just going to try the 15-to-1. So I'm going to measure out. For my cup of coffee at home, I've noticed for me, I usually do about 20 grams of coffee, and it's like about 300 grams of water. And it ends up, after you add the water, it ends up being around 300 grams or so. I usually cheat sheet and I ask my phone to do the math for me. And so
the science is just, it makes me so excited because I do the same thing with food. Just understanding the foundation behind the flavor profiles and why we put so much effort into something just makes food taste that much better. Like, it gives people an experience.
Give that a whiff.
It smells really good. See, I'm still learning. So this one says tasty notes of pineapple, dark chocolate, vanilla cream, and caramel. And so, I mean, the smells really good, but I don't know that, I mean, it'll taste like pineapple?
It's a great question. I've been doing coffee, and I've been in coffee for quite some time, and I wish I could say that I have a refined enough palate to pick. Sometimes I can. Sometimes like, oh my goodness, I taste the blueberry, or I taste the chocolate. But I feel also like, I think you've with your experience around food and culinary, you probably have a better palate for certain foods, and you've tried so many, so you're like, oh, I can taste this, and you have a better like a
wider gauge.
Yeah, like a wider gauge on what something would taste like, and so I feel like depending on like
your experience.
Yeah, and so I taste some stuff where the other people pull out something else, and I always love to see what other people experience in the coffee, what they taste, and I think like these are good notes to have to kind of think like, oh, I think I can taste the pineapple, and something like I don't taste pineapple in it at all, and so it's kind of an interesting.
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited to see if we can taste some pineapple.
So I use this little tool here. I was always against adding any sort of liquid to my equipment. And the more I've watched people online do this, I'm like, okay, I'll give it a try. So when I grind coffee in the system, it also creates a lot of, through static, it ends up getting beans everywhere, ground coffee everywhere, and I like to keep it clean. So I always just do a couple sprays of water.
So this is just to like keep a mess down. That's
yeah,
really
just pretty much is. And there's been some science that even the small amount of water, moisture in it, will actually change the way it tastes and helps it taste better, adjust the temperature, the way, because as you grind the coffee,
it heats up a little bit.
It heats up a little bit. So I'm grinding the coffee here. And you don't have to have all this fancy equipment to make coffee. I've been doing it long enough, then I just get obsessed and I'm like, buy the thing.
Oh, I get it.
But you could just get the pre-ground coffee, just hot water, and that's the thing about coffee I love is that you can go as deep into it as you want, or it's just simple of just hot water, ground coffee. You can need, a filter, and that's it. And it's great.
Well, for me, it's like food is not just eating, it's just not eating a meal, it's an experience. And that's what I feel like coffee is too. Yeah. Like it's an entire experience. And we wake up, most of us wake up every day and this is our go-to.
Yeah.
It's a ritual.
That's exactly it. That was the thing. Couldn't think of the word, and I was like, I'm hoping she says it. So like a ritual, because I just love that. Yeah, it's my system. I would call it my system, but just and it kind of sets the day for you. And so you start out, and then it's like, it's my yoga.
It's your yoga.
Just making a cup of coffee.
So this is downward dog.
This is downward dog.
That's a pose in yoga.
Oh, yes. There you go.
Stay with me.
I was thinking like, I don't know.
It's okay.
Well, because I was thinking there's a cafe called Wet Dog. Not Wet Dog. No, Coffee Girl. Anyways, I was thinking that store, so I thought maybe the brand was like Downward Dog, but no. Yoga, yes. I like to preheat things, so I feel like...
like we're preheating the whole...
So I'm actually going to preheat this a little bit.
Okay. So
I feel like it opens up the flavors a little bit.
I love this, and it keeps this warm. So you're not putting warm coffee into a cold container.
And then I feel like it would just quench some of the taste. And so you want it to open up.
So warmth is literally opening, it's like blooming.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's a good word. So that's what. How we do this is we will let it bloom. So I do different steps in when I make my pour over. So I'll let it bloom. So I let it preheat for a little bit. Whoops.
I was in the food and beverage industry for a while, and the more fine dining restaurants that I would work in, they would have us do the same thing with the coffee cups. So before we would serve the coffee to the guest, we would pour hot water in their cup.
Yes.
And then we would go get the coffee and either do a French press in front of them or some sort of fancy pour, but they had a warm cup. And I always thought it was just more of like to keep their cup of coffee warm, but now I'm understanding that's helping with the flavor of the coffee.
I think part of the big one is keeping it warm as well, because some people especially depending on if you're a restaurant, by the time that coffee leaves the station where it was made, by the time it gets to the person, by the time they set it down, you want them to have the same experience that they would have had from the moment they got their coffee. And so, and a lot of people like their coffee hot.
Yes.
And so the size of the thickness, the density of the glass will play a role in it. So yeah, if you're doing that and then you're getting a coffee and your lukewarm coffee will taste different. And sometimes it will open up flavors you might have not liked. And so that's one way a good reason to preheat it. And
so you did what, 20 ounces?
20
grams.
20 grams, a little over 20 grams.
Okay.
And then I'm going to use my cheat sheet of a phone to do the math because I am not good at doing it in my head.
And the intention is you're making 1 cup of coffee or 2?
I'm just going to make you a cup of coffee.
Okay.
And we could always do more.
We'll split it.
But it'll make us like a 12-ounce coffee or so. It's going to make us 300. Well, let's see. I do 15 times 20, so 300 grams, which divided by what, 16, so it's 18. That's not right. 18 ounces? No, how many ounces in it?
8 ounces in a cup.
8 ounces in a cup. So anyways, yeah, so you'll have 300 grams. I don't know the gram to ounce conversion. Yeah, that's what I'm like. The conversion ratio. So I'm going to throw a timer on it. My system is I was at a coffee shop in Olympia, and I saw how they made it, and I liked them. Like, hey, what methods do you use? And it was like a 30-second, 50 grams, and then another 30 seconds for another 50 grams of water, and then you go 100. And so that's the...
So you're going to pour and then let it filter through, and then you're going to do again.
Yes.
And that's what you're talking about. Okay.
Yes.
30 seconds.
Yes. So I'm going to time it, and you don't have to... like when you do it after a while, you kind of get what it is, and it doesn't have to be precise. It's just you want it to let it bloom a little bit, and so that time gives you... The time frame gives you some time to, and so I kind of go in circles. It evenly gets the coffee wet, the ground's wet, and then I will let them sit. And then as you watch, just even now, you're starting to see it bubble up, open up, and it'll start to aerate. And
so there is kind of a froth going there. Would you say that's like the blooming process, kind of the oils and? Yeah, and you can really smell. I don't smell pineapples yet, but I think that'll come later.
Yeah, I wonder where the pineapple's going to come from.
But it's fun because it does give you something to think about when you're tasting these coffees,
right.
Like just like with wine. Yeah, this is exciting. So is this your preferred method at home, or do you go to one of the other two?
I just do a pour over lately. I feel like I go in stages. I love making lattes. I also like it. I like to keep things very simple, and this seems like the most simplest setup for me because I just dump the grounds out, rinse it out, and I'm good. Versus espresso, I feel like there's more cleanup involved, and so.
Are you a 1 cup of coffee kind of guy, a 2 cup? Like every morning, how much coffee do you drink?
I'm a 1 cup. For me, coffee isn't about getting caffeine in the system. It's more for I enjoy just a good cup of coffee. Just something good cup of coffee. It gets me focused just to have that moment. And I drink my coffee very slow. I don't mind it to be warm. I don't like it to be too hot. So I don't mind if I get a hot cup of coffee, I'll let it sit. And I feel like actually the quality of coffee, a good way to experience it is trying it hot and then trying it tepid and then trying it cold. And you can add some ice to it and then you'll see how the flavors change. And if it's still good, it usually means that those are good quality beans or it's just a good cup of coffee.
Would you say all beans will lend themselves to being good at all temperatures, or would you not Would there be some coffees that you wouldn't use cold or drink as a cold brew?
Possibly. I feel like also like the way it's ground might play a role. Possibly the quality, the type of roast it would. I mean, they could all be done cold. I feel like cold brew would. It's just, yeah, the kind of the coffee, the flavor you want, because you can do different roasts, and you can do a darker roast, and you can do a cold brew, and you can, and that would be fine cold, obviously. And you can do this as well. It just extracts a little bit differently. But I've just noticed it's more of like maybe my own little trick I have is just kind of like I connect coffee with whiskey a lot. Similarly, like just a cup of coffee is equivalent to just a neat whiskey. Adding some stuff to be like on the rocks, or like a latte would be equivalent to like a cocktail.
Oh, that makes sense.
And so I've noticed like some whiskeys you need to add a little bit of like an ice cube to it just to water it down a little bit, and some do taste better or pair better as a cocktail. So I feel like the same thing with coffees. Different beans will lend themselves to different things, different recipes or different flavors.
I like that.
So yeah, so that's
all right. So we've got. And these kind of look like an insulated glass cup.
Yes. So I think part of the thought is beyond just looking nice. It's also for that your body temperature does not impact, doesn't force it to cool off sooner, and maybe keeps in a nice little air pocket in there, so the coffee will maintain its temperature. So,
cheers to our first cup. Okay, that's crazy. It's like citrus.
Yes. I don't taste the pineapple, but
no, but I get what that means.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Okay.
And so then and you can grind it differently. I mean, this coffee is only a few days old, so it's a few days off roast. I think it was roasted on Wednesday.
So, like for me, I wouldn't think this would be good with milk because it's so acidic.
Yeah. So if you were to add milk to it, it wouldn't taste that great. And so sometimes when people do try craft coffee and like, I didn't like what I had, and I asked them like, what did they get? And they'll tell me, they got like a caramel latte, and they went to a specialty coffee, and part of it comes down to like the shop not pairing certain flavors well with their coffee as well, because that also comes down to the person making the coffee, and then or if you add extra sweetness to something, that'll impact it. Like a lot of this will be masked if you were to add caramel to it, and then you're like, I don't think I had coffee. It's almost like a tea at this point.
Takes away. This is great. Okay, so while we're enjoying this one, let's then move to this guy. So we have the Guatemala left, and then the Ethiopia.
I was thinking of using Guatemala for the espresso machine.
Okay.
I feel like that's where we'll get those flavors out, and then I will try the Ethiopia.
I'm excited to see this process because I've never even seen this contraption nor heard of it before.
I'm excited to try it. It was kind of a last minute thing to grab. I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing's great to have. And I'm just trying to remember, it's the same concept of what I did, of pretty much what this is, but it extracts it differently. And a good test would have been just to make the same coffee in it to see how different it would taste.
That's a
but
good
we have
idea.
so many options, it would be fun to try just a different coffee and see if we could pick up any different notes with it.
Okay, and so walk me through the thought process on your grind. It's going to be bigger on this one?
Yes, I would go a little, actually on the AeroPress, it would be pretty much similar, but I'm going to go a little finer on it. It'll be interesting to see what flavors come through with this. So I'm also going to use 20 grams in there as well. It's kind of just like my go-to.
Okay.
I just know like my cup at home holds about 300 grams of water just perfectly, and my brain likes just the
you want to fill it up.
But it's not too full, so it doesn't splash. So it gives you like a ratio, and I love.
Just the thought that you put behind your cup of coffee impresses me. Having a variety and then also understanding the flavor profiles of different coffee is really exciting. We went to Hawaii recently, and I brought back some coffee, and I knew it was good coffee, but now I understand better how I could have brewed it.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to think differently now when I go to have that. I'm going to look at the flavors and see, what does this lend to, and should I put milk in it or not?
And as well as like now it gives you even more appreciation because they probably gave you some sort of information about it, and you're like, okay, I kind of understand more about coffee. And then seeing it, you're like, wow, like now it's almost like you're getting to pay that extra respect to the people that work so hard to get you the coffee. And you're like, sweet, now I get to do my part and try to experience what you experience when you're wanting to sell it. And you're growing this coffee, you're collecting it, you're going through this whole process, and I want to be able to experience it how you envisioned it as well, which is kind of cool.
Continuing the art into your own kitchen. So where's the craziest place that you've taken this guy and actually brewed a cup of coffee? Is this like a hiking thing that you would take with you?
It should be a hiking thing.
Yeah.
I think the craziest thing, I think we took it camping once. I should say glamping. I'm not a camper, I'm a glamper. So we went glamping, and I took it glamping. And so I haven't done anything too crazy with it, but that was it. Actually, I think in hotels, that's the thing. Like, it's great for like when I go to when you go out, and sometimes the coffee at hotels might not be something I want to try, or if I get up, I like to get up early, and if there's like not on the weekend, or if the coffee shop's not open early enough, it's nice to have this as well.
Hotel coffee is not the best. I mean, as far as like in your room. So what a great option to then take your coffee with you and have a method to which you can.
Yeah, if you want to be that person, you know.
Oh,
I'm gonna be that guy. Like, I'm gonna bring my own coffee.
Me, so I'm that person.
Oh, for real? Oh, perfect.
Yeah, that's my thing.
Some more water to this.
So it's exciting too when we get into the espresso. I made some flavors, some syrups here. I'm pretty excited about. We've reserved one of the brews or the blends here for, which one did we? Oh, we decided this Guatemala one was going to be for the espresso to go with the simple syrup. So we did a vanilla, we did a cardamom, and then also a brown sugar maple. And so I'm excited to see how we can pair those flavors. I want to try it black, and then we'll just progressively add to our cups.
Totally. For the espresso? For sure, yeah. We can make multiple, I think, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the nice thing about espresso.
And so are you doing the same temperature of water for this one as well?
I believe so. I think I'm going to go with the same temperature in the 200s, 205. And it will change. That's the thing. Like if you were to measure it by the time it goes from there to here. So I'm not going to preheat this one. There's not much to really preheat on here. Okay. When the water warms up, I will preheat that just to have a warm vessel to put it into.
It's just crazy how acidic this is. I just never noticed.
And it's like not for some people. Some people like it and some people don't. And so that's why I was trying to, that's why there's so many different varieties for people. Because different elevations will impact how the coffee is, how it's grown and the process. I feel like the natural ones definitely have a more flavor to them, or certain flavors kind of bleed through a little more.
What do you gravitate towards, your flavor profile?
I love Ethiopian coffee.
Okay.
So the one we're making now, I believe, it's always been my go-to. I've just always enjoyed every method of it that people have made, and I feel like they just keep discovering new regions or new methods of making it or having it, so I've always just enjoyed it.
And so the flavors, in your opinion, how would you describe Ethiopian differently than another cup of coffee?
They do have a lot more fruitier notes to them. And so I kind of, from my experience, I feel like the African coffees in different regions of Africa, I feel like have a lot more fruitier notes versus South America or Central America. I feel like they have a lot more earthy and chocolate and hazelnut. And it's not to say that you can't get that from the coffees in the other regions, but they pull different things from the soils, different flavors from them. And the Ethiopia, I think it's because years ago when I got into coffee, I never really looked into it, but I feel like they said that like we all as humans all started in Ethiopia, like that's where we came as a people. And I'm like, sweet, like I want to taste the home.
Yeah.
Right. Just to see what if this is the origin of humans and the origin of coffee, like it was meant to be.
Yeah.
And so
we're at the 200, 205. I'm excited. So it's not that I don't enjoy this coffee that we just did with the Papua New Guinea, but it's a little more acidic for my liking.
Yeah.
I appreciate it, and it's fun to try the different flavor profiles. I think for me, and I'm still growing my palate with coffee and understanding it, I like something that's like smooth and dark, very strong coffee. So I'm excited to kind of work our way through these and hopefully gain better appreciation and grow my palate. But
for sure,
that one wasn't necessarily like my
it's definitely on the brighter side. It's not for everyone.
Right. Yeah, that's a
for
great
sure.
way to describe it.
And then also different methods too. And I could make it more fine, let it sit a little longer, and play around with it. Especially like when you're committed to a bag, you're like, okay, well I have however many more cups left with it. I want to find out what I like, and then you can fine tune it and try different methods with it, which is kind of nice. And it's kind of like I think maybe like with baking or with cooking, you can adjust, tweak things a little bit. It's kind of like this works better with my oven, or this works better with the rest of the recipe that I have, you know, or with the tools that I have.
Yep.
And so you can adjust it a little bit, and then you know, and then you could see if you want to add flavor to it or milk to it. And it's kind of the same thing concept with here. I'm gonna do 50 grams, and then I'm gonna let it sit and kind of steep or bloom.
And so then this is more of just like a shot that we're getting.
Yes, kind of just pressing it out.
Okay. So when you buy this contraption, it comes with the gray pieces here and then what you have in your hand?
Yes, a little stir stick. It comes with everything, but I added a screen into it versus it comes with little paper filters. And there's enough paper filters to last you a long time. I just felt like, I'm trying to remember why. I think I felt like at one point I had a friend of mine who was like, oh, you're getting certain flavors out of the paper. And then you get to this point where I can actually taste the cardboard of the paper in my coffee.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm gonna go with stainless steel filter. I probably can't tell the difference, but my brain thinks there's a difference. So.
I just can't help but thinking like traveling with this and like having it in your backpack. What if you have to pull this out and explain what it is? I don't know that they would.
Oh, to TSA. Like, yeah, this is my
like,
coffee
what
method.
is
You're like,
this?
sure. Yeah.
So.
I like to believe that people think like we're in the Northwest. Like there's enough odd, weird
That's
people that they're
true.
like, it's probably some sort of coffee
I
contraption.
want to buy it just to carry it around so people will ask me what it is. And so then it's that plunge method. So like we said before, this is very much French press method, just on
Very
a smaller
similar, yeah.
scale. And it's more of just a travel version of that.
Yes.
And this one's really frothy at the top. That's fun. And then you're timing your pours just like you did for the pour over.
Kind of for the first one, just to let it bloom. And now I'm just going to let it sit. And then I'm trying to remember things I do. I think it's 3 minutes or 2 minutes total with it. Actually, no, 3 minutes total with it. And I'm just going to let it sit. And then it steeps. And then you slowly press it.
So with all of these coffees, we talked about there being a lot of waste. What do you think? Besides throwing them away, do you have any creative ideas that we could do with it? I mean, people do it in their garden, or
and so we've done it. We've added to our garden before, or added to plants. I have friends and met people that will add it to their soaps. Some people will add it to.
Like
I had
an
a friend of mine.
exfoliant.
Yeah, like I had a friend of mine who used to make my beard oils, and he would make it with like coffee grounds, and he had I don't know the magic behind it.
Right.
They would give it
No, that's
certain
unique.
flavors, but the soaps for sure. And I feel like it actually cleans better with having that little bit of that grit, and it's organic. It's not harmful to you, and I feel like it's a good way to like kind of just give a second life to the grounds. And I know people make face products with them, different face scrubs.
Yeah, coffee scrubs I've heard of for the body, like coconut oil and coffee scrubs. So there's another market we could get into, saving our grounds.
And then this is the, actually I'm gonna let you do it because this is the most pleasant part. It's just the
Satisfying.
plunge.
You're
Yes,
so
most,
nice.
Yes.
Um,
Sorry, I'm like taking over the process. You should,
No,
you
you're
should
the-
get to contribute
you're the
and have part of this.
magician.
And then just evenly press it and slowly, and then it'll.
So what do you think? So this makes me think of wine and aeration. Do you think that there's a concept of aeration that applies to coffee?
Probably, yeah.
I wonder,
I think
like,
so.
You know, I wonder if we, am I doing something wrong?
Nope, that's it. That was it. And then there it is.
Usually that sound you should stop, but okay.
Yep, and that just bottomed
Look at that.
out.
Yeah, I wonder if we played around with the idea of aerating or putting coffee through an aerator when you pour, if that changes. I just have so many ideas. Like I feel
No,
like
absolutely.
we
I'm sure
need
it
to
probably
do more
does.
experiments together on coffee and
I'm on board.
flavors.
I like to nerd out over this stuff. This is how I got into it. I'm always trying to find a new way of doing something.
Yeah.
And so there's.
I'm gonna save that one, and then you can try with me.
So this is the Ethiopia, I believe, right? So let's see
Yes,
if we can pick
let's
up
get
the
that out of the way.
sweet jasmine nectarine.
This
or
is
red
your
currant.
favorite, and you said it's fruity.
That's fruity on the back end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And both of these coffees aren't for everyone. I know some people want a little more richness from it. I use earthy a lot because I don't have a great enough vocabulary maybe to verbalize but like chocolate, hazelnut, so more darker tones, darker flavors, and some people like that with their coffees. And so Ethiopia's a little on the lighter side, Papua New Guinea, so it's harder for some people to get into it, and I totally understand because I started on the other end where I thought coffee was the one way, and then I swung to like, oh, it needs to be lighter, and now I'm kind of just like, how do I feel about it?
You just appreciate it for where it's at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the thing for me was I got really obsessed with coffee, and I became like known as a coffee snob, and I didn't like that reputation because I used to think it was when you're younger, you're like, oh yeah, that's right. Like I know my stuff, and I travel and then your world, you travel a pond and you think it's your world, and you expand. You're like, oh, I haven't tried enough. But I was at a friend's house doing some IT work for her, and she was like, would you like a cup of coffee? And I was like, and before I could answer, she's like, oh no, I forgot you're a coffee snob. She's like, I only have Folgers. And she's like, would you like some whiskey? She's like, oh no, I'm sure you're a whiskey snob as well. And she's like, I was gonna ask you about water, but I know that you make your own ice kind of thing. And I was like, you know what? And I was like, I'm a guest in your home. I would love a cup of coffee. And she made me, she's like, it's Folgers. And I was like, it's your house. I'm a guest. I'd love to try it. She made me a cup of coffee, and it was one of the best cups of coffee I had. And I think for me, the biggest thing is the community side of coffee. It was that somebody made me something, and I wanted to honor them. I'm in their home. I'm a guest, and I want to try what they're offering me, and I don't want to ever like just disrespect someone's thing or just to make them feel like, oh, something's not good enough. And it was just a great cup of coffee. And to me, that's what really changed my mind about coffee, was like, I'm missing out. It's not about trying the next best cup of coffee. It's the community aspect of it, whether it's going out with friends to coffee, going to a friend's house for coffee, roasting coffee, trying coffee. And it's just the community aspect of it. And as much as I like making a cup of coffee at home, I think it sets the day. I would any day prefer to just go out for a cup with a friend or friends or groups, and so, or have some, especially having somebody make you a coffee. I love the treat of somebody just makes you a fresh cup of coffee. So,
well, there's something to be said for, somebody doing something for you and that connection.
Yeah.
And I am right where you're at with food. Like,
yes.
It's the connection. It's the desire to understand that person.
Yeah.
From a level from what they can provide. And
just
how you can give back.
And you're being vulnerable with the person, right? You're opening up, and you're like, you don't want them to critique what you're making, but you're opening yourself up for that critique. But it's also that trust. Like, I trust you. I'm going to make you a cup of coffee, and I hope you love it. I hope you like it. I hope it sparks something inside of you. And I love sharing things. I'm like, well, I hope they can taste that, or I hope that they can appreciate it. And sometimes I'm like, just lie to me and tell me you like it. Like when you have an espresso machine, I'm like, tell me you liked it. You liked it, really, right?
Yeah. Right? It was really good.
It was worth it. Trust me. So.
Right there, I think that's why I resonate with you so much, is because I desire the same thing. I want the experience with the person. I want them to feel comfortable, but I also want to give a part of my heart to them. I want to give them something that I love to do, and regardless if it's an off-brand, came from a can and pre-ground and sat on the shelf for 4 months, or a really good cup of coffee. It's speaking the love language and giving it and sharing with somebody else.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like it's also, that's going to be like, I remember that coffee with my friend Rosie more than I remember like when you're like, what's the best cup of coffee you had? And I'm like, if you're like, what's the best craft coffee you ever had? The best place you've ever been to? I'm not going to remember the coffee, but I'm going to remember the moments. I'm going to remember the moments when I was in Germany with one of my best friends having a cup of coffee, or I'm going to remember the moment I was in Spain, and I'm remembering the cafe, the person who made me a cup of coffee, the conversation I had, more than just like the exact notes of that coffee. I think maybe my first cup I'll always remember because it's just a hit of just sand, brown sand of water, and I'll always remember that. But overall, I remember like, oh, I like this type of coffee, but I can't pinpoint the exact moment that I had a specific flavor that moved me more than the moments I've had, the stories I've shared. And to me, that's been a better pursuit of not just like, oh, I like their coffee, or I like this coffee shop. But to me, it's just like anyone who wants to share a moment with me, break bread, have a cup of coffee, that matters more to me, and that memory will forever resonate with me more than just the actual flavor I had in it. And so I've had to dial back my pressure on, because I also feel like for me, it puts too much pressure on coffee, and then it opens me up to disappointment. You know, because you go up and you're like, and then it got to the point where I was going to places and I was like watching the barista. I'm like, oh, they know what they're doing. They don't. And then you're already prejudging that coffee, and like it's going to be a terrible coffee because they didn't measure their shots or they didn't time it right. And then come to find out that wasn't like it happened to me a few years back where I went to like ask them to remake my coffee, and I was about to do it, and I realized that she wasn't even making my coffee. She was making someone else's coffee. But I was like, I timed them like, oh, that's wrong. And it was just that arrogance, the ego that came in it instead of just trusting the process. And I was like, I gotta relax.
Isn't that funny though? It's like we think we know how it should go or what we want, and if we just kind of step back and we think, you know, there's so many different ways to live life and to experience things and to let it come into you. I just think that's where I'm at now, is sitting back instead of having, it's that internal external battle of like, I want to prove myself, I want to know that I know the things and I'm gonna do it right, to receiving someone else's experiences and taking it in from a different perspective than just my own. Absolutely.
I think you're right. And I think that plays like a big role into just like that, the community aspect of it, and just just new experiences too, because you don't know what you're like, you don't get too set in your ways. I feel like I've lived long enough to know that my experiences have adjusted, my perspective has adjusted, and my values have changed within coffee or within the community, or like it's just been a good life lesson overall, is just knowing that like to not prejudge something, to not, and I'm like, and honestly, like we talked a little bit earlier, like if you do a blind test, I'm like, I'm like, my palate is not refined enough to tell you this. And there's some people who make it their life and who can say, oh, I know this coffee, I know exactly what it's from, I know this brew, and I'm just not there, and I don't want to fake being there. And I feel like for me, it would be a turn off to the people that I'm around to get to that point. And I'd rather just have more fun and share those moments of just trying to experience new things and trying someone's new method. Because I feel like I'm on a journey, and I've been on a journey with coffee. And if I compared myself to the person who's like a barista, like world-rated barista, and if I compare to them, and like if I make them a cup of coffee, they probably wouldn't like it because it's not at their level. But I had to start somewhere. And I don't want to crush anyone else's dreams, because I don't want to ever deter somebody from trying to approach something who could probably take that and go somewhere else, like somewhere wonderful with it. And I've learned to just check myself before I like, you know, verbally just kill someone's idea of what coffee should look like. And I've learned to just be a lot more careful with my words. I think it's that idea of remaining curious and asking questions. I think that's like where I'm at, and it sounds like what you're saying is just being curious from someone else's perspective, from someone else's flavors, and it just opens up your eyes to so many possibilities and things that we just wouldn't have never thought to ask or experience. And so I think approaching life with curiosity is really the secret ingredient to growth. Absolutely. I think that's a great way to summarize it. Would you like to try some espresso now?
I would. I'm almost sweating because these are really warm, and it's,
I feel like we should pass these on to some of the friends in the audience if they want to try some.
Yes. Delicious.
We have our lovely family supporting us.
We do. We have lots of love and support, so we're lucky. All right.
The helpers behind the screen.
I do want to say one thing before we do. I don't think that I would put any milk or cream in that cup of coffee. It was just too light. Like it would just drown out the coffee.
Right.
Make it.
And I feel like that's what people would add. Actually, that's why people add milk to their coffee. I feel like, at least that's how I would, is if I go somewhere and I like maybe see the coffee process they might have, or I ask them and they tell me. Like there's a place in town I go and they do have more of a darker roast coffee, and I'll still get it, and I'm like, I'll just get it with cream, because that will just adjust it to what I need it to, and then I can still enjoy it, and it works with the flavors that I like. It's kind of like with coffee, I feel like similar to steaks. You have rare, medium rare, and well done. I was like, who goes there? But to each their own. And so the same with coffee. Is like I feel like we're at the medium rare right now with the coffee, and then this might be pushing it more to So and then Guatemala might be closer. Well, they're all still there, but like the darker it is, the more you probably would want to add a flavor to it to palate. So when you hear people have espresso chocolate or something espresso flavor, this is not the coffee that they would probably use to get that espresso flavor.
Gotcha.
They would probably use a bolder, stronger coffee to get that, because it
holds up.
It holds up to a little more blending versus these wouldn't.
Because those are powerful flavors you're mixing together, and if it doesn't, like that last one wouldn't hold up it's too weak. It's not the word I want to say, but it doesn't have the strength and the flavor profile to hold up to anything else.
Yep.
It doesn't. I don't think it should compete.
Yes.
So let's do something that will compete.
Awesome. I'm gonna rinse out these cups real quick.
Here you go. Is the other one. So this is really making me foam at the mouth and want one of my own because it's A, beautiful, and B, I think that now that I'm learning so much more about coffee, I think that I have a better understanding of what I like. I'm excited to try this one to just make sure, but I really feel like this dark roast coffee is my jam.
Yes.
And I think I'm gonna forgo some cream. Like I think this is
we could try it. Yeah, we could try it.
I just want to try it by itself and then add in later.
Yes. I'm gonna try to dial it in a little bit because
move some of this stuff out of the way. I might borrow this next time I travel.
You are more than welcome to borrow. I have so much coffee equipment that I don't use and I sometimes forget about. And so when we were talking about this, getting together and having this podcast, I'm like, and then I was like, I wanted to bring everything. And then Bree's like, well, how about just pick a few things? Just, like.
It's hard when we love it all.
Well, because I'm like, I want to talk about this, and that. And I'm like, okay, like how about some varieties or just enough to like kind of hit every category a little bit. And so espresso is kind of a 2-to-1. So 2-to-1 ratio with water and grounds. And so I run a deeper basket. I run like 18 grams of coffee through here. And this one's different because it's like there's different adjustments and it's based off of time. The longer it runs, the more coffee it grinds. The finer it is, and I've kind of pre-made my own little setup. Mm-hmm. And so the finer the coffee is or the coarser it is, the quicker it extracts.
Okay.
And then the flavors will change. And the quality of coffee sometimes is forgiving on some of those and sometimes it's not. And so the age of it, so the fresher the coffee would be if it was straight from the roaster, it kind of explodes a little bit in here. It's still off gases even as you're extracting it. Mm-hmm. And so I usually use the most freshest coffee in my espresso. That's from personal experience, just from conversations with some friends and playing around with it. I've just learned, at least for me, that's what I do. But to each their own.
I like it.
So I'm gonna actually weigh it out on a scale to see if I'm getting the right amount of coffee. And this is the sad part is so much coffee gets wasted in some of this process because of how
I was
looking for the caps to the little plastic cap that was covering the scale, and I don't remember where I put it. I think it should be fine. It'll be fine. I wondered, but we'll go with it.
This looks like a cap, but I don't know if it's the right one.
Yep. But I think I already measured it out, so that'll be fine. So,
okay.
So this is a lot more finer. Mm-hmm. You can see, and so that works best for espresso. So that's why it's a hard time. It would be hard to. Yeah, we're close. We're like at 16, so we're at 17 grams.
So what's interesting to me, like this machine is pre-measuring, but you're double checking to make sure that that it's giving you what you want.
Yes, because I set it up for what I want. Mm-hmm. And so the numbers I've already added in here, it's from me measuring before, but because I've just added a new coffee to it. Mm-hmm. And so this is about a gram shy of it, but I'm okay with trying it out on this one because it's pretty close. But then so it ran for 15 seconds, it ground for 15 seconds, and the grind was at 18. Mm-hmm. And so if I coarsen the grind, if I bring it up to 19, it'll probably bring me up to where I need to be there, but it might be too coarse. Okay. So when I pull it, we'll also see how long it takes. Mm-hmm. And so with this one, I realized I want it around 28 seconds. It seems to be the right amount of coffee or amount of water extracting through here.
And so just for somebody that's just starting off and they want to invest in a machine like this, it would be reasonable that they could just go based on the settings and then just adjust based on their flavors if they wanted to do it more. So it's based on the strength of coffee that's going to be coming, or the espresso shot.
Yes.
Okay.
And I do recommend if somebody does get a machine, a lot of these get returned, and you can always find them on Facebook Marketplace for like half off right after the holidays. Mm. Is people get them and like, I'll just make a coffee at home. And because this has got so many options, it's hard to just press and go. because like you can kind of dial it in, but you don't know what you don't know about it yet. And then a lot of people don't know how to dial it in. And so I've helped a few friends dial it in to adjust the coffee and kind of what they're looking for.
Okay.
And so.
Okay, so this is I see baristas do this all the time.
This is a tamper.
Help me understand what we're doing and why we're doing this.
So we're tamping the coffee. I'm doing about 25 pounds of pressure. I've done enough. I feel like that's enough, like just from years of doing it. And that helps us compact the coffee. And so when we put all this pressure from the espresso, like the machine's going to dispense like high pressure, high volume of water through here.
Yeah.
If it was not compressed, it would just shoot everywhere. It would just do what these did. They would just blew them and just go everywhere, make a mess. Where this kind of helps compress and almost filter itself out through itself.
And now you're just double checking that the outcome of what you're going to get measures up to what the calculation you did for the grinds.
Yes.
Okay.
And so I want 2 ounces of coffee to come through there. So hit brew. I'm sorry that the audience doesn't get to see this angle of it, but it's okay. Just imagine with us, it's going to be a beautiful cup of coffee.
Well, it's just really user friendly because there's seconds on here. If you want to add milk, there's the grind, and so there's just a lot in here that I feel like you could modify your coffee however you wanted it.
And you can pre-label it as well.
Oh, you could do like a custom.
Yeah, so mine's right now, it's...
That's so cool. I could teach my kids to do this, and I could just lay in bed and wait for them. I think that's what's going to happen.
That's the dream. And that's the reason why I went with this one. There's different models that don't have this that are, you kind of press buttons and try it out. So this is about 2 ounces right here.
2 ounces, and then we've got this guy, which... This is the Guatemala.
You can see, but this is the crema. I know people like to see the crema in these.
Okay, explain crema to us.
Oh boy, it is...
We lose some of it. Oh no, we're good. Yeah, that's so cool.
So I don't remember off the top of my head. So it's part of the way how it extracts. It's like it creates all these bubbles and aerates it, and then I think the nitrogen escaping. And so the more crema or the better the crema, the more fresh the coffee.
So I'm just going to be really honest, and you're probably going to laugh at me, but the Nespresso, I got it because it spins the pod and it makes a frothy cup of coffee. And then obviously George Clooney promotes it, so there's that element of it too.
Handsome guy, good hair.
Yeah, frothy coffee, like it's the
that's
perfect
exactly
combo. But I love the froth. Like I almost feel like the froth replaces cream sometimes. Like it makes me feel like I don't need the cream because that froth is there.
Okay, yeah. And it could be that as well for those. I have not played around with one of those yet to try that. But it like we talked about earlier, about aerating it, so that could play a role in it for sure. So I know like when I got into it, we always like with coffee, it's like you want the most crema, you want good crema. And so the fresher the coffee or the type of coffee or how it extracts, you'll have better crema on it the longer it sits. And so that's what we've always just gauged it. I'll be honest, I haven't rebrushed up on all that. I have so much coffee knowledge that I can't always project it on the fly. But
there's so many rabbit holes, really.
Yes, so you can smell this and see if there's like if there's any aromas in anything you're picking
Yeah,
up
I
from
would say it's darker, or it feels more rich, or smells more rich. So this one's milk chocolate, hazelnut, apricot, and grape spritzer.
Ooh,
grape spritzer.
That's a good espresso.
Okay, I'm excited.
That's the flavors that you might.
Oh, wow. So it's very strong.
It's very strong,
but
it's smooth. It's not bitter.
Super smooth.
Yeah.
And the first cup that we had was almost this like acidic in your mouth. This one, it's a party.
And those might do the same thing here, but it's just all about how you adjust the water and through the grinds. And so.
And this will hold up to cream. Like I would put a little bit of cream in this, and it would be the perfect cup. Because it's like that cream is going to add to it, not take away from it. Whereas the other ones would be the opposite.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Now we need cream, and we need frothing is my favorite conversation because I just feel like, well, we were talking about the froth on the coffee.
So you want to steam some? You want to steam some milk?
I want to do all the things.
Okay, cool. Okay, so we'll do that.
Okay, help me understand because I have a bunch of milk. I have whole milk. I have half and half. I have cream. What do you think is the best, and how would you go about? When you're considering what milk to put in your coffee, what would you choose?
Well, I have always loved dairy, but my body and I don't blend with dairy as much anymore, but it's worth it for coffee.
Okay.
I do know quality of milk plays a role in it as well, is that some milks hold up better to higher temperature.
Yep.
And that might be true when you're baking or cooking. And so whole milk does a good job.
Okay.
Whole milk steams well. It's got a nice sound to it. It's good for latte art, for presentation as well. But you can do different varieties of milk, and they just do different things. Some milks don't hold up to higher temp as well, or they kind of just fall apart. Like the sugars, I think, in them kind of just.
So it would be
fall
more
apart.
on the skim side that doesn't hold up. So do you think it's the fat?
I think it's the fat content. Fat and sugar,
Okay.
I think, play a role in it.
Okay, so I'm going to meet you halfway and get a half and half. How does that sound?
That's bread. We do bread. I mean, whole milk would be perfect. That's what, like, when you go to any coffee shop and you just get like a latte, they use whole milk.
Okay.
Unless you request skim
Something
or half.
different.
Breve it's going to taste delicious and creamy, but you might miss some of the coffee flavor with like the.
So you think it's too much? You want to do whole milk?
Yeah, let's do whole milk.
Okay.
I mean, we could do both, but
no, that's
that's
good.
the.
Yep, I like it.
So that's it. So the breve is the half and half is what they refer to when you get a breve latte.
Okay, so we have whole milk, and we're going to froth. I think I put your thing right here.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm going to rinse this off. So this one has there's a little temp probe on here. I don't really use the temp probe because I'm used to just using my hand, but I think actually this one has the same ability. Yeah, so the metal. So you can, with these machines, you can set it and forget it, and you can adjust your milk. I like kind of frothing my own milk to the temp I like, what I can create with this. I'm actually going to pull another shot, so you may continue to consume that.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, I think I'm going to switch. I think that I'm now on the bandwagon of dark, plain black coffee. You've crossed me over to the dark side, no pun intended.
Hey, it's awesome. And then someone said, well, it's like less calories.
Oh, that's true.
That's
See,
the selling point to myself.
we were talking about our last meal and what they would be, and it was really interesting because
Mine was boring.
his wasn't boring. He just based it on calories, and he was like, "I want to eat the most calories possible."
And I still sell myself short. I was like, I'll just do this, and I should have just went like give me all the ice creams.
Yeah, but you did say the affogato that was part of it. So tell them more about what that is.
So the affogato is ice cream. I think what I learned from it, I think it came from Australia, but I could be wrong. But you take ice cream, you put it in a cup, and you pour espresso over it.
So you would take like this shot that we just pulled and
you just pour it right over.
That would be delicious. This would be so
cream.
good for that. I would not do that with any of these other ones, but this one would be delicious.
I like to put my syrup in the cup and then put espresso over it. Then it blends well, I think. And then I will add that espresso mixed with the flavor into the cup, and then I will do the milk over it. I feel like that does the best blending. Because some syrups, like this would go great, I think, either way. But if you use like a caramel or a chocolate, that the temperature might not be hot enough to melt that, and it might not mix as well. So I always like to just add my espresso over the flavor.
Okay.
So whether you flavor the cup and put it under there, or if you use another cup.
I like it.
So which flavor would you like to try?
I want to do cardamom. That's my favorite.
Okay, let's go with that.
And
since we don't know how strong it's gonna be, I'm gonna just trust that we can just wing it.
this one is a strong flavor, if that's what you're talking about.
Yeah,
There's
so-
lots of cardamom, so I just go a little. It's going to go a long ways. I made it very concentrated.
Okay, well, we will just.
Yeah, and I'm just being selfish, but I'm not a super sweet coffee kind of girl. I love just enough to bring flavor in.
Hint of it.
But I also feel like it enhances the richness, like a little bit of sweetness. It just plays well.
It opens it up a little bit, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So good. So those of us that like a foamier, or help me understand the steaming process to which you're taking it from like an Americano to because that's no cream,
Right.
and then a cappuccino and a latte, because they're all different froth methods and thoughts behind it.
Yes, so the more froth, the more, if you just maintain the same amount of coffee, so if you do if you're doing a cappuccino, you don't really do flavor, you just do espresso, and then it's just the milk and the percentage of it that's foam. And you can do a wet or a dry cappuccino. The more foam, the drier it is, the less foam, the wet it is, and then at some point there's like, is it considered a latte? So it's kind of always been like a industry, not like an argument, but it's always like, at what point is it still considered a latte or not? And so latte is just steamed milk, and some people like it more foamier, and then the more foam you get, then it kind of comes down to like, oh, you're making a cappuccino with just the flavor.
Gotcha.
And so
the
Americano would just be water over
water
your
added
shots.
to this.
Yes.
And so if you were to go and order and you wanted something more wet or dry, you're speaking to the frothiness of the milk.
Yes.
Whether it's going to settle into your coffee or kind of sit on top.
Yes, exactly. Okay. And so like you couldn't really do, like cappuccinos, you don't really do latte art with them. So there's like a certain ratio of how much foam you want in there if you were to make some latte art, which is designing on. So yeah, so this is the puck. This is what we would call the puck. And so you can kind of see like a health of like the coffee. So if this was all falling apart or if there was too many holes in it, it'd be called channeling. So it's like wasn't ground well, it wasn't tamped well. And so then like you get to see it's falling apart, so a little wet. But anyways, you could then like get to the nerdiness of like what your puck looks like for your coffee, and then like that goes to the next level of you're tamping if you're too hard, and then you can like it's how you prep your grounds. So there's a lot of science is behind there, and there are people that are way more skilled and talented and want to pursue this further than I do, that do it and do it well.
Well, just understanding that you can go deeper, and there's just so many elements to which you could. Like, I mean, there's rabbit holes with the milk, with the coffee, with the grinds, with the. So it's really exciting. We're kind of just scratching the surface, maybe a little deeper than a scratch.
Right.
But it's exciting too because then you can titrate your coffee exactly how you want it based on like, I didn't like this because of this, and you can solve your own problems and just have the perfect cup of coffee. But still be open to others' ideas as we talked before,
right.
Other versions.
Well, that's exactly, I'm gonna make some room just because you want to be comfortable with my steaming of milks.
You gotta get some wingspan.
But, and like usually, the thing was before that you didn't want your shots to sit too long because they would go bad. And then I've seen the science that people say the shots don't go bad because like when you're doing competitions, some of those shots sit there for a while before they get to the judges.
Okay, time out competitions.
So there's coffee competitions. People compete to be the world's best barista.
Oh, interesting. So it's like there is a parameter to which good and bad for coffee, right?
Somebody sets it. Somebody sets the rules. It's called I think it's SCCA. Specialty coffee, SCA, specialty coffee. I don't remember the acronym.
And so then they're brewing different types of coffee and having judges test them because their temperature, their water, and the grind, and the actual beans and the roast.
Well, their ability to communicate with the judge. So you're like a barista. So based on my understanding, is they're having you talk to the camera or talk to the judges or the crowd as you're making your coffee. So it's the smooth transition, and you're making all these cups of coffees for the judges to try, and then they judge you on the milk, the foam, the latte art, like the whole thing. And so there is like a standard that people set, and so that's been the kind of the goal. So there is kind of a parameter of what you're aiming for.
I have a new goal in life to be one of those judges.
That would be cool.
That would be cool.
I came across this gal I follow on YouTube named Morgan. She was training to do that, and she ended up winning in the United States Championship to be the best barista. And then I walked into a coffee shop, and she was working there, and I was like, no way. And so I didn't want to I was like fangirling out. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm a huge fan. But I was trying to be like,
arm, please.
But I was just trying to be like, hey, are you Morgan? Hey, like, thank you. And that was it, because I was like, I've learned enough to be like, don't freak out around people. Just let them have their thing. So like, you know. And so I got to watch her. Now she won the best in the world.
That's so cool.
And so she's got a YouTube channel, and I follow her, and it's exciting to see. And it's cool. And so I'm like, wow, like a local celebrity.
So you're frothing to what are we making?
So I'm gonna make you a latte.
Okay.
So what I'm doing right now is I'm aerating the milk. And that's gonna give us good microfoam.
Microfoam, okay. And is there steam going in right now, or is this just air?
Yeah, so it's steaming. It's putting steam in here to heat the milk, and it's also at the same time it will pull in air and then aerate it.
Have you ever made a big mess with this before?
Yes.
Yeah, I could see where that would happen really easily.
So I'm trying to figure out like the best like swirl method, because as it swirls, it'll be, if I break up the swirl, it'll affect how smooth it's steaming.
Okay, interesting. So the swirl, because you're keeping the particles kind of like consistently moving.
And then they
I had
bond
no idea.
better together.
This is so cool.
And it might not make the best latte art because yeah. So always clean your steam wands.
Okay. And so how do you know when it's done? You're basing it on how it
temperature,
feels.
yeah, on how just from like when I've had it like from my coffee days, like I hold it till it's too hot to hold, and then I go a couple extra seconds, and I pull it off, and it's usually the right temp of what the lattes I like. And then, of course, the longer you work, the more immune you are to the pain, and then you just burn yourself with overflavored coffee. Yeah. And so this is what's considered good microfoam. So there's no air pockets in it.
It is beautiful. Silky looking.
Yes, and that's what you'd want for latte. But then sometimes it's too much. And so I'm a little rusty on latte art. And so I will try, and we'll see what we can create. So part of the flavor, like part of the good cup of coffee, like
that's so cool.
Taste something is the foam, right? So like
you can
that gives it a little extra
That's
flavor
the mustache
to it.
right there.
There you go.
Okay, I'm doing it.
That is yours.
It's beautiful, and look at that. I mean, it's all the way down to here.
Yes. There's the mustache.
Oh my gosh.
Is it too much cardamom?
No, it's delicious. You have to try it.
Okay.
It's so delicious. The best part about it is that the coffee still comes through, although there's lots of milk. The cardamom's subtle. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's delicious.
And so that's where so when people buy, when you go out to get a cup of coffee, I'm going to get a large latte. Mm-hmm. Some coffee places will still only give you 2 shots of coffee in that large, so all you're paying for is more flavor and more milk.
That's
why I like to just get a small cup of coffee. I feel like the ratio of milk to coffee to flavor is good. Mm-hmm. And so for that, you're like, I'll still be able to taste the coffee, even though it's maybe a lighter coffee, and it's not too sweet. The flavors pull through, but not too much, and there's not too much milk. And then you go bigger, but you might only be getting the same amount of coffee, so you're actually diluting the flavor of coffee down, and then you add more flavor to it. So I always tell people that little trick for them is like, if you're getting coffee, unless you say I'm going to do a quad shot, which is 2 of that, and then you'll still maintain your coffee, or if you want more in a smaller amount, you ask for more coffee.
Yeah, going in ahead of time, knowing the type of ratio that you want.
It's pretty much otherwise you're just paying for milk. And you're paying more, even more, like that's a little trick, a little life hack of buying coffee.
No, I love it.
Unless you really just love that much flavor.
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, hey, it's your money, spend it and enjoy the coffee the way you like it. It's I had a friend of mine years ago, I got into cigars. I got obsessed with cigars for a bit. And he was like, I'm like, what's the best cigar? Is it the Cubans? Is it this? And he said, it's whatever your money buys you. Whatever you want to spend your money on is the best. And I was like, wow, you're not wrong. Because I get to define what's best for me, right?
Right.
Like if I say to the whole world, this is the best thing ever, and you're pushing a product, maybe, but like, it's whatever you're willing to buy. And I was like, that's a good point, because I tried things I just didn't like, but I was forcing myself to like it because the movie said Cuban cigars were great, or these people, and I was like, I don't like this at all. Is something wrong with me? He's like, no, it's whatever you want to spend your money on. I was like, okay. So with coffee, whether you want a big one or a small one or less or more, I think it's personal preference, but if somebody wants to like educate themselves and compete, there's definitely people well more educated and, like passionate that, you can always, we live in a world of information, which is wonderful about coffees. There's so many people out there that you can learn from, and there's so many methods and so many countries make it, so many cultures make it, and there's different approaches and there's different ways of doing it. And so, yeah, this is kind of the way that I know.
Well, I can't say thank you enough. I've learned so much about coffee, and I've even, changed my liking. I think I appreciate it differently now.
Yeah.
And I'm able to take that forward to be able to educate other people or just give them an experience. And that's really the goal, is experiencing this with people.
Yeah.
Right? And that's kind of what we talked about before, is remaining curious, being open to trying different things. And I think that it's just important to find people that share a similar excitement for things.
And just nerd out together.
And just nerd out. Yeah, I love this.
And this is the cool part about it, is like how deep do you want to go into it? Like you made your own syrups.
Yeah.
You made your own scones. And it's like, and I have friends of mine who, my buddy, you spoke with the roaster this morning, who roasted that coffee, right? Yeah. And there's so many avenues you can go down, and that's why, like, when I was younger, I would like we would bash on Starbucks because, like, oh, it's just not craft coffee, it's just drive-through, it's just sugar. But it's also like, at one point I realized, like, I have to thank Starbucks, because if it wasn't for Starbucks, they're the ones that brought the coffee experience to America, to people, for people to then want to leave their house and go and spend money on a cup of coffee. And then that kind of drew out a new crowd, and since then there's been new industries that have been born, so many different coffee shops, and so many people like, hey, I want to do my own take on it. And so I've just learned to just just let people be, let them do their thing, and find what works and what I appreciate, and either put my time and energy there, and versus like, it's a weird thing to say, but like I've learned to try to not yuck someone's yum.
I love it.
And if they love that coffee,
oh my gosh,
let them have it, And so I just was like, it's been a new approach for me over the last few years to just kind of, there's always somebody that could do it better or someone differently, and I'm like, I just want to find those people and have fun with them and enjoy it, and then but always just be able to come back to just a basic cup of coffee, or just you're breaking bread with your grandparents and they might have their way of doing it, and I want to just respect and appreciate that because somebody took their time to make me a cup of coffee.
Agreed.
So, and that's what I love. It kind of
brings
everyone together. So yeah.
Well, I think if we took away anything, it's to remain curious, to try different things, to look at things from a perspective of that maybe we don't know everything and that we're willing to learn more about it. So I just challenge you to do the same. Surround yourself with like-minded people and just have fun with it. Like, I think that this is such an opportunity to grow, and who doesn't want more coffee in their life? So I can't say thank you enough, and I don't think I'm gonna let you take this home with you because it's gonna stay here. So
I'll get another one. Sweet. More coffee? You mean I need to buy, you mean I get to buy more coffee equipment?
You get to buy more, yes.
Yeah. No, I got so excited when this came. I'm like, oh my goodness, we've been wanting one, and it was going back and forth. And my thing is like, if I'm gonna buy one at the house, I'm gonna start my own coffee shop. Because that's how you justify paying for it. I'm like, I'll just keep making coffee.
That's right.
And it's been great for events. And so, but it's, it took me, I've been in and out of coffee since 2010, I think. And I just within the last year got an espresso machine, right? And so it's like, you don't have to have it. They make, and so it's like, I don't ever want not having the equipment deterring someone from having a passion.
No, that's a great point. Like, you can buy this. This is $20 or $15.
Yeah,
and still have a great cup of coffee.
The AeroPressos from Target. I think I can buy from Target online or Amazon or wherever.
There's so many things.
And like you could buy, like, I have family that buys coffee from Safeway and they find beans they like. I'm like, go for it. And I'm like, if you need help, I'll help you dial it in, and we'll go with what works for you. And not everyone's budget is a $17 bag of coffee.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's like, respect your budget, and it's totally okay. And you can develop it and grow it, or you can maybe get more creative with it. It's almost like I enjoy the game of how simple can I make this and still make it good.
Yeah.
It's like, what's the least amount of tools I can use to do this, and what's the simplest, and can I make it good? And it's like sometimes you want to go out and eat and get that naughty food, and it's like, and then you can get to make fun leftovers with it. So same way with coffee. It's like, buy it wherever you can, and don't let like a espresso machine deter you from trying to get into it and pursuing a new passion.
Agreed. Well, thank you again for your time. And
absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
I think there's some more for us to do. So.
Oh, for sure. I was like, when you're like, hey, let's talk coffee, I'm like, oh my goodness, like you're about to just open the Pandora's box of rabbit holes of like, and then because then it gives me the opportunity to learn more myself, to like deep dive, because it's like, well, it makes me question, like, why do I do what I do? Why do I like this? And then do I want to unpack that?
Right.
And then how far do I go? Or like, oh, this works for me, this works for my taste. And I'm not saying this is the only way or this is the best way. This is the way, it's the way it works for me.
But it's awesome to see you in this light. You're such a passionate person.
Thank you.
And it's blooming, right? Through coffee.
Nice.
So
I like it. Well, thank you so much. I'm glad I got to do this. I love sharing my passion, and I haven't gotten to do this before, so this has been fun.
All right, well, stay tuned, because I feel like there's more of us to come.
Absolutely.
And I really want to do some sort of a blind taste test, inject some humor into this.
Absolutely.
Because I'm ready to have some fun, and we're going to make some more coffee. So we'll see you guys soon.